in addition to all the other issues, the puzzle for many of us is why the Germans, the French, the British, and by that I don't mean the publics, I mean the small leadership group, are so insistent on fighting a losing battle, which has cost at least 2 million Ukrainian casualties. It's been a disaster. Why they're so interested in continuing that battle. I would say a couple of things about that. One is that their publics are not with them. So Merz, Starmer, and Macron are among the least popular politicians in the whole world. They have no public backing in their own country. Their own countries do not want World War III. They do not want war with Russia. They'd actually like pensions, Social Security, continued decent living standards. They don't want this militarization. So this is not a popular cause in Europe. It is a cause of Merz, Starmer, Macron, and a small group that they represent. Now, what is that cause? I would say most people that look at this closely don't have a good answer, convincing answer to that. Is it that their own political futures are wrapped up in a failed project, and so they can't admit wrong? Is it that they're pawns of the military-industrial complex, both their own and the United States? Is it when I look at Merz and listen to him, I feel almost like it's a German wanting revenge on Russia for World War II. That may sound a little harsh, but Merz is vulgar. He's a warmonger. He hasn't said one thing about peace since he became chancellor, and his support in Germany is collapsing. So I'm hardly alone in saying that. I'm aligned with the vast majority of the German people, actually, in saying that. So all of this is to say, Glenn, that we're not in a new issue. We're in an issue that's been going on 30 years. During the second Trump term, Trump has repeatedly said, let's stop this war for the reasons I've been saying. Then the Europeans and Zelensky have run in, and Trump has changed his tune, reflecting not only his personal mood swings and high volatility, but also the fact that the U.S. security state is divided. There is the military-industrial complex in the U.S., which is happy to fight on. They're making lots of money. This is a very profitable war for the military contractors, for the senators and congressmen that support the military contractors. So when you ask, is this the end? Logically, it should be, but Trump has backed down each time that he's said to the Russian counterparts, let's end this on the basis of Ukrainian neutrality. And whether he'll back down again is the question. I'm hoping the war will end to save Ukraine from this terrible, mistaken, futile, seemingly perpetual war that has been waged now for well over a decade, and this project that has been waged for 30 years.
Well, the post-Cold War objective of NATO appears to have been to develop a collective hegemony in Europe, that is, to push Russia out of the continent, again, fitting within the unipolar moment. But some of the split you refer to within the US, it seems to be that there's a new wing of American politicians who think that the hegemonic aspiration exhausts the United States, and also it prevents the US from adjusting to these multipolar realities. That is, it's getting bogged down in Europe when its priorities in a multipolar world should be to have more influence in the Western Hemisphere, and also they want to confront China in Asia. Not that this is necessarily a great idea, but at least Europe is no longer a priority. So this seems to be splitting the US, but also it seems to be where the Europeans get very uncomfortable, because there's not really a clear plan for Europe in a role after unipolarity, that is, after the United States deprioritizes and in Europe and partially leaves the continent. And I'm not sure if this is also the reason why we have this revival in German militarism. But given that this war began as a conflict over the European security architecture, with Ukraine being a symptom of this, to what extent do we need some settlement on what European security should look like? Because we're dealing with this as if it's only an issue about Ukraine, but this war doesn't really have that much to do with Ukraine as opposed to being one component, and also it doesn't really have that much to do with territory either. It doesn't seem like we're dealing with the root of the matter.
That's exactly right, and I think it's important to recognize that this U.S. gambit, the one that Brzezinski spelled out in 1997, was a piece of a larger puzzle. It was the global chessboard. It wasn't just a European issue. The belief in the 1990s in the United States was unipolarity, that there was one global hegemon, that was the United States, and that it was the role of the global hegemon to make sure that it would never be threatened by any pesky wannabes in the future. One part of that was to corner Russia, surround it in the Black Sea region, basically render Russia a third-rate power or less. Brzezinski openly opined about Russia breaking into a number of weak separate units that would be joined together as some kind of confederacy, not even a federation, but some kind of confederacy of a European Russia, a Siberian Russia, and an Far East Russia. So they were dreaming that the U.S. would run the world, and this is one part of it. And the real dreamers, the delusionists, became known as the neocons. They thought that the U.S. would render Russia into, as I say, a third-rate power or completely broken, that the U.S. would dominate the Middle East, and that was a big part of the project, especially a Zionist orientation, because the U.S. went to war repeatedly for the sake of Greater Israel, which is so weird and almost unimaginable, but it was part of the neoconservative playbook.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌帮助了睡眠品质。原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有超级食物羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good。请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。